What's good, YouTube? So today we have a brand new kind of mechanic within link summoning, and that is occupying both extra monster zones. Now this is going to be insanely hard, and I'm going to explain it to the best of my ability. I've just read through this entire article, and also in this article by the organization is that you are going to include what happens with Psyframe-Lord Omega. I haven't read that yet. I'm excited to read that with you guys. But first, let's go ahead and read through this article talking about link summoning. So call them to your main monster zone, special summon from your extra deck using link monsters. If you have a link monster in play, the main monster zone pointed by its link markers can also be used to bring out extra monsters. So now we're going to talk about mutual links and what exactly you have to do in order to occupy the zone. But as you see, they're showing that, well, as you don't see, let me get a second one for pictures here, screen capture here. As you see here, they show that you can actually go through and occupy both extra monster zones. So this is what they meant by it's a race originally. It's kind of really cool that it's actually a race in a sense of if you have a really broken deck, you might be able to take both extra monster zones. I'm sure we'll see some combos with this coming very soon. These kind of things tend to get broken very fast, but both zones? Really? Oh my gosh. So it affects your opponent's field too. It's talking about markers going to your opponent's field and enabling their main monster zone. So like if you have a forward-facing arrow, they can use it. So bring out extra deck monsters by securing a link monster in your extra zone. Take advantage of extra link. So extra link is what they're calling occupying both zones. Use both extra monster zones by mutual linking. So all these have to be mutual links. So what a mutual link is, as they're about to describe, is arrows have to be pointing both ways. So this arrow down has to connect with an arrow up. An arrow to the side has to connect with an arrow to the side. Arrow to the side has to connect to the side. Arrow up has to go to the arrow down. So you can't like shortcut. You can't use a diagonal and just go and go through and ignore this. You have to have all these connecting arrows in order to do it. So it's going to be very specific. So you can start with like the link spider that only has the downward arrow, then have something that points up and that way. So it has to point up and side. Then you need something that points both ways. So this should evolve as it continues, but right now it's seeming pretty impossible to do consistently. But it's still really exciting that you can do it. Use, so when every monster from one extra monster zone all the way to the other extra monster zone has monsters that are linked with each other, that's known as an extra link. This is the only way for a player to use both extra monster zones. Bring out a monster to the other extra monster zone. Normally you can only have one extra monster zone, but if bringing out a monster in the other extra monster zone would complete the extra link, you may use that monster zone to do so. So it's going to show, I think, a few ways to do this here. As you see, there's this middle zone, and I don't remember this zone being able to be occupied, so that's very interesting previously, because it looks like this is an extra monster zone, oh, maybe it's the opponent's main monster zone. So, okay, it's showing from both fields, the 1-1-1-1, it's just showing both perspectives. So these are the forms of extra link that we have. Very, very interesting that this is just a thing that you can, the race is real. So I had said that in the original thing and nobody else had mentioned it. Really, it is indeed a race, but again, you're overextending a lot to do this, so I'm not suggesting to try it, but it makes for some really funny replays. Okay, so extra link, a situation in which two link monsters in each of the extra monster zones are in a mutual link with monsters to the main monster zone. So we've just explained mutual link for you guys. I got ahead a bit, but you can only use the other extra monster zone if you already occupy an extra monster zone with a link monster. Summoning a link monster in the other extra monster zone would complete the extra link. A situation concerning the two extra monster zones and a mutual link with each other is known as an extra link. Your two link monsters being connected by each other by a mutual link, only using your opponent's main monster zones, is also an extra link. And so here we explain exactly what a mutual link is. So as you see, there's A to B, and then there's B to A. Neither of those are mutual links, but A and B pointing at each other at the same time, that is the mutual link here. So just kind of a cool note that we have new terms of like mutual linking rather than, and that actually mattering. So the arrows pointing to each other matters. A monster is at the zone pointed at by a link monster, and one or more link monsters are pointing at a monster are both known as a monster being linked. Two or more linking monsters pointing at each other with their link markers is known as a mutual link. So it's just kind of cool. Link monsters cannot be placed on the field in defense position. If a link monster summoned properly is sent to the graveyard or banished and special summoned from the graveyard or from being banished, they go to the main monster zone or in any monster zone any main monster zone you'd like, not any monster zone. Link material. A monster sent to the graveyard by a link summon is a link material. Link materials are sent to the graveyard before a link monster is placed on the field. Even if a link summon is negated, those link materials are still sent to the graveyard, in which case they are not treated as link materials any longer. You can link summon even if Macrocosmos or a similar card would banish materials face up, in which case the materials end up being banished. So again, it's kind of reiterating, hey, it doesn't matter where these go. Yes, if they're banished, you still summon. You can use tokens as link material, in which case they cease to exist. You can use a trap card treated as a monster as a link material, in which case the trap card is sent to the graveyard as a material. A link material stops being treated as a link material if it's summoned back to the field or moved anywhere else. So it sounds like it's still linked in the graveyard in terms of being a link material. Like the monsters in the link zones are not, or the links like that are linked to the card are not the link materials. The link materials are what are actually sent. This is kind of huge. Link materials cease to be treated as link materials. For the monster, they were used to link summon if that link monster is destroyed or otherwise moves places, except the cases of temporary banishment, like interdimensional matter transport. So it really sounds like you're going to have to keep track of what you used for the link summons. And as you continue through the link summons, you're going to have to keep track of what's in the graveyard and what's a material for this. That's very interesting. Temporary banishment effects. If you use cards such to banish a monster for the predetermined amount of time written in its card text and its return to the field by set effect, it is not treated as a special summon. Because of this, you can temporarily banish and return special summon monsters that were not summoned properly. Usually, a card returning from temporary banishment does not start a chain block. A card returning from temporary banishment returns to the same position it was in pre-banishment. In the same way, even if a card's control change, returns to the field of the last player controlled it pre-banishment. Also, face-down cards return in face-down. If a monster in the extra monster zone is temporarily banished and returns, it returns to the main monster zone of the last player who controlled it and the same battle position. During this time, if the main monster zone is field, the monster is sent to the graveyard instead. So if Omega banishes, it comes back in the main monster zone. If Omega banishes and your main monster zone is full, it cannot come back. Wow. That is actually pretty crazy. If a temporary banished card is special summoned by a card effect or goes to the graveyard and gets banished again, it no longer returns to the field at its original timing. Special summon from the extra deck. To special summon from the extra deck, you must place a monster in either the extra monster zone or a main monster zone pointed at by a link marker. If your opponent link summons monster's marker is pointing at an unused main monster zone on your field, you can use that zone to special summon from the extra deck as well. Even if your extra monster zone and all your main monster zones pointed at by markers are occupied, you can still perform link summons using the monsters in your extra monster zone and your main monster zones pointed at by the markers, and summoning that link monster on a zone occupied by one of the material monsters, proving that using any of the monsters would not cause you to have no zones in which you can special summon an extra deck monster into. And that zone you are attempting to summon into is legal. Example, if you have the Kotaker in your extra monster zone with a Honeybot in its bottom left position and one monster on the left of Honeybot, you may link summon using Honeybot as a monster into either of the Kotaker's link zones, but not in zones previously linked by Honeybot. So basically, if you use a link monster, you have to go into an enable zone that would not be enabled by the link monster. That's pretty big that the materials are what you send, not what's linked by it. And it's also really huge that you can take your opponent's, both. You can take both extra monster zones and occupy them. And Omega comes back wherever it pleases in the main monster zone rather than the extra monster zone after banishing. So I hope this was super helpful to you guys. These are huge updates to the link mechanic. And I'm glad there is so much clarification. I'll link the article down below. Thank you, Yu-Gi-Oh! Organization, for doing such a great job.